The Instant of My Death by the English writer Sarah Jackson appeared in her debut full-length collection Pelt in 2012. Her poems are noted for their intimate strangeness, exploring subtle shocks and moments of emotional disorientation, often blurring the boundaries between the uncanny and the everyday. Key themes include travel, transformation, and moments of epiphany within the mundane. In the instant of my death, the speaker recalls a cramped and uncomfortable bus journey through the Spiti Valley in northern India. As the bus travels along the winding mountain roads, she observes the scenery and tries to distract herself from boredom and discomfort. At a road junction, in a remote village called Gramfu, she notices a young boy in a red flannel shirt. Suddenly the boy turns and points a toy gun at her, momentarily making her believe she is about to die. Though the moment passes quickly, it leaves a lasting emotional impact. The speaker in the poem may or may not be Sarah Jackson herself. While the poem has a confessional or anecdotal tone and draws on what seems to be a real journey through Spiti, we can't assume the I is identical to the poet. The speaker is a constructed voice, and even if the poem is rooted in personal experience, it has been shaped and crafted for artistic and thematic effect. The poem can be read as a profound meditation on liminal spaces, thresholds that are both physical and metaphysical, where ordinary boundaries dissolve and transformation becomes possible. There is physical liminality. The speaker is travelling through the Spiti Valley, a place quite literally situated between things. Perched high in the Himalayas, it's a space suspended between earth and sky, where civilization thins out and the natural world takes over. There is also psychological liminality. The speaker occupies a dissociated mental state. She's neither fully present nor entirely absent. She traces lines on the window and counts cows and gompers until her eyes glaze over. These are the behaviours of someone in an in-between space. She is detached from her surroundings, drifting internally. Her mind floats between boredom, sensory overload, and quiet internal withdrawal. Finally, there is spiritual or existential liminality. The poem's climax, the boy shooting her with a toy gun, pushes the speaker into a sudden moment of existential liminality. For a split second, she believes she is about to die. In that moment, she enters a space that is neither life nor death, but a kind of psychological borderland. Liminal spaces, by their very nature, are ambiguous and unsettling, and that's exactly what Jackson captures, a moment when identity, perspective, and meaning all teeter on the edge. The poem comprises 6 stanzas of 2 lines each. It is written in free verse, which means that it has neither a fixed metrical or rhythmic structure, nor a set rhyme scheme. Line lengths are variable, although most are long, contributing to a feeling of looseness and drift. Enjambment is frequent and caesura is used sparingly but purposefully, creating a choppy, discordant rhythm that mirrors the physical jolts and emotional unease of the speaker's travel through this remote and mountainous landscape. The uneven syntax helps to evoke the sensation of fits and starts, both literal and psychological. The poem's diction is plain and unadorned, giving the speaker's account an unsentimental, almost detached tone. This simplicity is effective in highlighting the contrast between the mundane and the profound, i.e., how a deeply spiritual or transformative moment can occur in an otherwise ordinary setting. While sound patterning is rare, there is occasional plosive alliteration and consonance, such as propped open by its peaks, which subtly draws attention to the vastness and the jaggedness of the surrounding landscape. Despite the overall simplicity of the language, the poet uses moments of figurative language, notably simile, e.g. like a damp cat, metaphor, e.g. a black-eyed bean, and personification, e.g. Spiti rose up around us, to give texture and resonance to the speaker's observations. These moments create flickers of emotional or sensory clarity with the otherwise numbed tone, suggesting that insight and even revelation often arrive in unexpected ways. The title, The Instant of My Death, is striking and deliberately provocative. It immediately sets up the expectation that the poem will recount either an actual or imagined death, perhaps a dramatic accident or moment of crisis. This assumption builds tension throughout the poem, particularly as the speaker describes a perilous journey through the remote Spiti Valley. However, the instant referred to is not a literal death, but a split second of total certainty, a moment when the speaker believes she is about to die. Although she survives, the experience is transformative. That single moment alters her permanently, granting her a visceral understanding of what it feels like to face death. The title therefore captures not only the fleeting nature of the event, but also its psychological and existential weight, suggesting that a life can be reshaped in the blink of an eye. The poem begins, "The bus was crammed and the fat man rubbed against my leg like a damp cat while you read the Jataka tales 3 rows from the back." The speaker immediately sets the scene. The bus she is in is so packed that she is in uncomfortable proximity to a stranger. She refers to him only as the fat man, not only revealing that they have not introduced themselves to one another, but also implying that there is a power imbalance between them. The adjective fat conveys the idea that, due to his bulk, the man is squashing her up against the window and there is nothing she can do about it. The simile, rubbed up against my leg like a damp cat, is vivid and visceral in its suggestion of unpleasant intimacy, evoking sensations of warmth and sweat. Cats will also often come up to you and rub themselves on you or jump on you without you having asked them to. This association with uninvited affection adds a sense of violation to this unwelcome encounter. Although the speaker is in a crowded bus, she is effectively alone, as her travelling companion, seated some way away from her 3 rows from the back, with his or her nose deep in a book, the Jataka tales, is seemingly oblivious to her physical and emotional discomfort. Note the juxtaposition of the speaker's endurance of something which is grossly physical and almost degrading, with her companion's absorption in a book of ancient Buddhist fables. The contrast between physical and spiritual, discomfort and detachment is really stark. There's also a sense of irony here, as he or she is reading moral tales of compassion and rebirth, yet seems unaware of the speaker's distress. The use of the second-person pronoun you here is a subtle but significant choice. The speaker is clearly addressing her travelling companion, but the intimacy of the direct address creates the impression that she is speaking internally, perhaps even rehearsing a silent complaint. This choice introduces a quiet undercurrent of resentment and emotional distance. While the speaker is physically uncomfortable and forced into close contact with a stranger, her companion is absorbed in a book, seemingly oblivious to her discomfort. This use of you suggests that this is not just a memory, but a moment that is still emotionally charged, as if she's replaying it with feelings that remain unresolved. Note the extremely long sentences and enjambment in this stanza, which evoke both the breathlessness and claustrophobia of being squashed in a confined space, as well as the unrelenting nature of the journey. This continues over the stanza break into the second stanza, which continues, "And we all stumbled on. Wheels and hours grinding, tripping as Spiti rose up around us, sky propped open by its peaks." Note the caesura in the first line, created by the semicolon, which brings this runaway rhythm to an abrupt halt. The rest of the stanza is quite choppy, broken up with commas, in contrast with the first stanza where there's no punctuation at all, and evokes the jarring, clumsy, stumbling nature of the journey. The roads are bad. Not only is the speaker uncomfortable because she is squashed, but the ride is not smooth either. Both wheels and hours are subjects of the same verbs, grinding, tripping. Time is passing as slowly, painfully and erratically as the bus's noisy and jolting movements along the potholed roads. The speaker is caught in a period of stasis and passivity. The absence of a coordinating conjunction, i.e. and, between the two present participles amplifies this jerky movement across both time and space. The enjambment caused by the line break right after tripping is particularly effective here, as it suspends the reader momentarily before the landscape suddenly rises up in front of the bus. The mention of Spiti firmly places the speaker in the Spiti Valley in the Himalayas in India and brings to mind precarious mountain roads with dizzyingly steep drops. The way the mountain rose up around us personifies it, giving it a sense of both agency and power. The profile of the mountains is jagged. The way it is able to prop open the sky with its peaks makes it seem vulnerable and torn. The energy of the plosive alliteration and consonants of the repeated p sound here enhances this sense of power. The idea that the sky is propped open is almost surreal. It suggests that nature is holding up something fragile, like the speaker's perception of the world, or even reality itself. The third stanza continues, "I traced the rock line on the window with my finger, counted cows and gompers, felt my eyes glaze over." The speaker is bored. She doesn't have easy access to a book, unlike her travelling companion. Rather than reading an ancient Buddhist epic, she is forced to make up her own entertainment, which is as banal and childlike as her companion's is spiritual and learned. She is forced to trace the rock line on the window with her finger and count cows and gompers that the bus trundles past. The asyndetic list here suggests the never-ending feeling of this journey. There's a sense that even though the mountainous landscape is sublime and awe-inspiring, it's also quite monotonous. Nothing but mountains, cows and temples or shrines. There's also something quite poignant about the separation between the speaker and the landscape. She doesn't touch the rock line itself, only its reflection or suggestion on the glass. She's separated from experience by a literal and emotional barrier. Her eyes glaze over as she zones out, becoming more and more desensitized. Note the skillful use of enjambment over the stanza break, which creates a vacant space on the page as the speaker's sense of the outside world is momentarily suspended until we reached Gramphu. There, where the road divided, I saw a thin boy in red flannel squat between two darbas. The speaker is once more alert to her surroundings. The full stop in the middle of the first line is definitive. The caesura it creates, suggesting that everything has been building up to this point. The image of a place where the road divided is not only suggestive of a physical turning point with a divergence of routes or roads, but also of a spiritual one. Her experience is going to be life-changing in one way or another. We still think, after all, that she's actually going to die. The image of the thin boy in red flannel that she spots is striking. His physical fragility contrasts with the looming massiveness of the mountains and the bus. The adjective red has connotations of danger, blood, and urgency, foreshadowing his involvement in her death. It's also the first vivid colour we're given in the poem. Until now, everything has felt muted, distant, glazed over. The red flannel breaks through that numbness. When she first spots him, the boy is just squatting between two darbas. His stillness acts as a sharp contrast to the motion and jostling of the previous stanzas. It feels like the poem has paused on him in a freeze-frame moment. The fact that he is placed between two darbas adds to the liminality in the poem. He is literally and symbolically in between things, between roads, buildings, choices. There's something almost spectral about this figure. We might wonder if he's real or a kind of hallucination or vision. There is a continuing expectation of death, and this stanza keeps that tension alive. The boy is marked out both visually and spatially, and the reader is led to suspect, is this the moment? Is he the harbinger of something catastrophic? In the following stanza, the speaker once more refers to the boy's size. A black-eyed bean slipped in between two crags. He was so small that I almost missed him, until he turned gap-toothed and shot me. The metaphor of a black-eyed bean to evoke his features and his size situates him firmly in his geographical and cultural context. Black-eyed beans are known as lobia in northern India and Nepal and are a staple food. Once more, the boy is occupying a liminal space, slipped in as he is between two crags. The speaker almost misses him, but she doesn't, and that almost makes all the difference. It's a near brush with the event that will define the poem. Although the sight of the boy breaks up the monotony of the journey, bringing her out of her state of dissociation, there is nothing overtly threatening about him. The boy's gap-toothed smile evokes innocence, maybe even warmth, and that's what makes the next part so jarring. It's an ordinary child, not a villain. The violence that follows, "and shot me," is impossible to reconcile with the image we have been given. Jackson's skillful use of enjambment across the stanza break is once more very effective. "And shot me with a toy gun." There is a moment of climax, then a moment of suspension, followed by a moment of anticlimax. This blank section of the page is the actual instant of her death, the liminal space between life and death, appropriately symbolised by the liminal space between the stanzas, where she simultaneously understands what it is to live and what it is to die. This space recreates that split second before reason kicks in and fear floods your body, when you realise that what you thought was happening is not what is actually happening. It's the spiritual point at which the road divides. One way goes towards death, the other towards life. The fact that she has never been in any mortal danger, however, does not detract from the profound spiritual experience that she has had. A piece of me stopped then. This is the true heart of the poem. It confirms that the death referred to in the title is not literal, but psychological or spiritual. She has undergone a loss of innocence and has come to a sudden, jarring awareness, either of her own mortality or of the arbitrary nature of life and death, power and vulnerability. It is deeply ironic that she's been the one to have the profound spiritual experience, while her travelling companion is ostensibly reading a learned and spiritual book. This moment has been intensely personal and not perceived by anyone else. Essentially, her moment of epiphany and personal transformation has been a private one. The bus, symbolic of time, machinery, and other people, life, in other words, has moved on, and the poem has come full circle. We're once more back with the fat man squashed beside her, who has now cracked open an apple with his thumb. This sensual and tactile image works on two levels. On the surface, it marks a return to the mundanity of everyday life, a blunt, physical gesture that contrasts sharply and jarringly with the speaker's profound emotional experience. On a metaphorical level, however, the apple recalls the biblical story of Eve in the Garden of Eden, where eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge led to the fall of humanity, the introduction of mortality, pain, and awareness. In this context, the apple becomes a powerful symbol of the speaker's own loss of innocence. Her brief but intense brush with death has opened up a new understanding, of fear, of fragility, of existence itself. The fact that the apple is broken open rather than bitten or eaten also suggests a kind of violence or rupture. Even this small, ordinary act is now charged with significance because her perception of the world has been irrevocably altered. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques, and English literature texts.